Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're stepping away from the usual geopolitics, the corporate strategy,
Yeah.
and we're going to focus on just a single moment in modern American cinema.
Hmm.
A confrontation so sharp, so, emotionally pure, that it really works as this powerful philosophical text on family and duty.
And on generational wounds, too.
Exactly. We are zeroing in on that iconic scene in August Wilson's Fences,
Right.
where the son, Cory, asks his father, Troy, a question that just cuts right to the bone. He asks him, "Do you like me?"
And it is such a profound choice for a deep dive because that one seemingly simple question,
Oh,
it just exposes the entire fractured emotional architecture of that household.
it really does.
So we're going to examine this fundamental distance, the fear, and this rigid dynamic that our analysis calls authoritarian love.
Authoritarian love. Wow.
Yeah, our mission is to really unpack, layer by layer, that tragic gap between a longing for affirmation and defining love only through duty, through protection.
And what's so fascinating right from the start is how the power of that scene comes from both men using the same word,
Yeah.
but they are speaking completely different emotional languages. It's like they're convinced they understand the rules of the conversation, but they miss each other completely.
Completely. For Troy, that question isn't a request for affection at all. He hears it as a challenge to his authority.
To his whole identity as a provider.
Exactly. But for Cory, it is this visceral plea for emotional recognition. It's a question about his value beyond just being useful.
Okay, so let's unpack this clash of definitions. Let's start with Cory. What is he actually asking for?
Right.
When he finally pushes back against his father and asks, "Do you like me?"
He's not. He's not asking to skip his chores.
No, it's not about discipline. He's asking for a completely different kind of currency. He's asking about connection.
Connection. Cory isn't looking for the boundaries to be removed. He's seeking affirmation. He desperately needs to know if there's any real affection underneath all those years of rigid expectations, under that huge emotional wall Troy has built.
You can hear it in his voice. The analysis points out this blend of exhaustion and frustration, but also this tiny flicker of hope.
It is subtle, that hope. The way he leans in just a little, it's this small gesture, but it's part courage and part, desperation.
He's putting it all on the line with that one question. He's asking for, I don't know, emotional oxygen.
And Troy's response is just, it's immediate, it's rigid, and it's devastating, precisely because it has no emotion.
None at all.
He doesn't soften his voice. He doesn't even pause to think about the intent of the question. His reply is entirely structural. It's rooted in the language of duty, of responsibility.
He doesn't engage with the feeling at all. He just starts listing things, right? Providing shelter, clothes, food. For Troy, that rigid authority, that role as provider, it's the only setting he has. The research we looked at is pretty clear that in his mind, affection it's a dangerous luxury.
And that is the absolute core of the tragic misunderstanding here. It's a collision of two completely incompatible ideas about love.
Yeah.
To Troy, love is expressed through labor, through relentless sacrifice, through the brutal day-to-day work of keeping a roof over your family's head.
So if he provides, he's done his job, he's shown his affection, that provision is like a shield.
A physical shield against the world.
Mm.
But for Cory, that shield is cold. He needs something else.
He needs recognition, he needs affirmation, an actual emotional presence. He needs to be seen, not just, housed and fed.
Right, he needs that emotional oxygen you mentioned, not just the physical roof. And because Troy never learned how to give that, because no one ever gave it to him,
Mm-hmm.
he sees Cory's need for it as a kind of softness, a weakness that needs to be stamped out. He hears a request for connection as an insult to his sacrifice. So the whole conversation is doomed from the start.
Which brings us right to this idea of the architecture of fear, because that's really the only way to understand Troy's rigidity.
It is.
The analysis makes it clear he isn't some kind of cartoon villain. He's not incapable of love. He is fundamentally just overwhelmingly afraid of it.
That is such a critical distinction.
Right.
Troy's fear is rooted in the world around him. He's lived a life where any vulnerability was punished or exploited.
Right.
His whole history, we're talking about profound cruelty, systemic racism, betrayal, disappointment. It has taught him one absolute truth. Showing affection, showing any tenderness is a liability.
Softness is exposure.
And exposure leads to pain every single time.
So he builds himself into a fortress. He genuinely believes that if he allows himself to say he likes his son or that he's proud of him, he's creating a weak point that the world can use to hurt him or, even worse, to hurt Cory.
Precisely. That discipline isn't just about keeping Cory in line. It's a desperate attempt to inoculate him against the world
Making him hard.
by making him hard. He's just repeating the only pattern he knows, that generational wound from his own father. Survival, but with no warmth. His father gave him discipline without affection. It kept him alive, but it left him emotionally paralyzed.
So when we look at Troy now, his love for Cory, which is there, it's fierce. It's filtered entirely through all this unresolved bitterness.
Yes.
He sees Cory's potential, his baseball, his education, and he doesn't see joy. He sees a risk of the same crushing disappointment that he faced.
And that's what makes Cory's questions so fascinating and so tragic. Troy hews it as a threat to his entire life's philosophy.
How so?
Well, if he admits he likes Cory, he has to admit that their relationship is about more than just duty. And if he does that, he has to confront all the emotional wreckage he spent his life burying.
But I have to ask, doesn't understanding why Troy is this way, understanding the trauma that shaped him, doesn't that risk excusing the cruelty? I mean, it's a powerful explanation, but it doesn't change the damage he does.
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
And I think the analysis isn't trying to excuse the what. It's trying to explain the how and the why.
Okay.
His trauma absolutely dictates how he communicates, but the cruelty is in his refusal, or maybe his inability, to see that his pain is not Cory's fault.
I see.
In his fear, Troy is sacrificing Cory's emotional health for what he thinks is Cory's physical security. And the real insight here is that love, when it's filtered through that much brokenness, it often looks like something much harsher than dislike. It looks like control.
Let's talk about his body language, because the analysis goes into incredible detail about how this conflict shows up physically.
Oh, absolutely.
This battle between the love he feels and the fear that paralyzes him. It's not just in his words, you can see it.
His body is a story in itself. When Cory challenges him, Troy stands up taller, his shoulders go back, they get rigid, his jaw sets.
Because his armor.
It is. It's his defense mechanism made physical. He is literally holding himself together to stop the emotional floodgates from opening.
And the analysis points to these tiny little micro-expressions that give him away. You see this deep tightness in his shoulders.
Yes, that physical tension. It represents the constant work of emotional suppression. And then, crucially, you see these almost instantaneous signs of the turmoil inside.
Like what?
That quick glance away when the emotion almost gets the better of him, or the analysis mentions a brief flare in his nostrils.
Wow.
These are tiny physical slips.
Yeah.
His body is signaling pain, it's signaling vulnerability, but his pride and his fear just instantly snap it back into place. He's actually afraid of himself softening.
He's physically performing his identity as a survivor, even if that means denying the part of him that's a loving father. When you see that body language, you get it. The cruelty isn't coming from hatred. It's coming from a desperate, paralyzing fear of feeling anything too deeply.
Exactly. It's the visual proof of a man who believes emotion is a weakness you have to hide at all costs.
And that's what you mean by authoritarian love.
That's it. It's love expressed through strict order, through command. It's designed for survival, but it has none of the emotional back and forth that builds a real connection.
And yet, we have to highlight what the analysis calls the tender glimpse, because there is that one moment where the armor cracks. Just for a second.
Just a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
But it's everything. It validates that the love is actually there, underneath all that fear.
So what are we talking about here?
It's a moment the analysis calls almost imperceptible. It's when Troy's eyes just soften when he looks at Cory. It's the closest thing to tenderness he allows himself.
And it's gone in an instant.
Gone. Swallowed immediately by pride and fear. But it's the proof. It's the visual evidence that the feeling is there, but his lifelong training has taught him to crush it before anyone can see it as weakness.
In that half second, though, you see the true weight of his tragedy. He loves his son. He cannot express it in a language Cory can understand because his own survival instinct overrides it.
And for Cory, seeing that Flash isn't a victory, it's actually the final painful confirmation. He realizes in that moment that the validation he needs, that connection, it is never going to come from his father's language.
Yeah.
He sees the truth of his father's love, but he also sees the wall of fear standing between them is just, it's impassable.
And that's the turning point for Cory. He went into that conversation with this quiet courage, hoping his father might meet him halfway.
Yeah.
He leaves understanding that there's not going to be any reconciliation, not in this language. There's just silent resignation.
And that silent understanding is the most devastating part. The space between them at the end of that scene. It isn't just generational. It's emotional. It's philosophical. It's the tragic moment Cory realizes that the love he gets will always be filtered through his parents' own brokenness.
This clash feels so much bigger than just Troy and Cory. When you zoom out, this one confrontation, it seems to represent these deeper universal forces.
Absolutely.
The past versus the future, right? Trauma versus hope.
Yeah.
Fear versus the vulnerability you need for any real connection.
And the brilliance of August Wilson's writing and what the analysis confirms is that both characters are completely right in what they need emotionally.
And both are just tragically wounded by the disconnect.
They're just operating on different planes of existence.
Mhm.
Cory needs to be seen as an individual. He needs to be affirmed for his own dreams, his own value. He needs acknowledgement.
While Troy's whole drive is to protect by controlling, he's using the only tools he thinks can guarantee survival. He sees his labor as the ultimate expression of love.
But he fails to see that what Cory actually needs is emotional labor, vulnerability.
So the core takeaway here, the universal truth in this whole scene, is that the question, do you like me, is almost never just about approval.
Right. It's not about performance.
It's about a primal human longing for connection, for affirmation, for a real emotional presence. It's a question about existing, not just doing.
And I think the most profound insight from all this is that sometimes the most painful answer you can get when you ask for connection isn't rejection, it's just misunderstanding.
A profound structural misunderstanding.
Yeah. The love is there deep down. But the language used to express it fails so completely that the result is just emotional carnage, alienation.
That idea of a structural failure of communication that resonates so far beyond this one scene, if you let that sink in for a minute, you realize how much of our own communication is dictated by our defense mechanisms. If a whole lifetime of struggle dictates your emotional language, then we have to wonder, how often do we mistake discipline for dislike? Or, rigid protection for a total lack of love just because we aren't speaking the same language of trauma and hope?
Which really raises a final question for you, the listener, to take with you. When someone in your life expresses themselves through, say, immense labor or relentless sacrifice, or maybe even overly harsh discipline, are you able to see the underlying love and fear that's driving that expression? Or are you only hearing the pain that's created their communication filter?
It makes you think, how often might affection be hiding right there, just underneath a deep fear of vulnerability?